19 years ago, a 3-year-old vanished from a holiday apartment in Portugal, and the man investigators call their prime suspect has never once stood trial for it, not for her disappearance, not for anything connected to Madeleine McCann directly. That's not a headline from 2007. That's still true today. In 2026, Germany tried to hold him accountable through a different case, and lost. So now, for the first time, British investigators are attempting something no one has managed in almost 2 decades, physically bringing him onto UK soil to finally charge him with her abduction. Whether that's even possible is a different question entirely. Today, we're breaking down how a case with a named suspect, a confessed location, and years of so-called evidence still hasn't produced a single charge, and what actually has to happen for that to change. Let's go back to where this actually starts, because to understand why 2026 matters, you need to understand just how badly the first investigation went wrong. It's May 3rd, 2007. A family from Leicestershire, England, is on holiday at the Ocean Club Resort in Praia da Luz, a quiet seaside town in Portugal's Algarve region. Kate and Jerry McCann are staying in a ground-floor apartment with their 3 children. Madeleine is 3 years old. Her twin siblings, Sean and Emily, are 2. That evening, the McCanns go for dinner with a group of friends at a tapas restaurant inside the resort, just a short walk from the apartment. The children are left asleep inside, and the parents take turns checking on them every 20 to 30 minutes. It's a setup that resorts across Europe see every single night. Nothing about it looks unusual, until it does. At around 10 p.m., Kate McCann walks back to the apartment to check on the kids one more time. She finds Madeleine's bed empty. The window is open. The shutter has been forced. And just like that, a normal family holiday becomes one of the most scrutinized missing persons cases in modern history. Within hours, Portuguese police, known as the PJ, are combing the resort. Within days, it's a full-blown media event, and not just in Portugal. British newspapers are running the story daily. The public is desperate for updates. And here's the detail that a lot of people forget. The very same detectives working this case were, at the exact same time, drowning in a flood of tips, false sightings, and international pressure that honestly no local police force is built to handle. That pressure is exactly what set the tone for everything that followed. Because instead of steadily narrowing down suspects, the investigation started looking in strange directions almost immediately. The first person Portuguese police focused on wasn't a stranger. It was Robert Murat, a British expat living with his mother just a few hundred meters from the McCann's apartment. He'd been translating for police and journalists in the days after Madeleine disappeared, which on its own isn't suspicious. But in August 2007, he was formally made an arguido, which under Portuguese law means an official suspect with legal protections, though not the same as being charged. Then, in September 2007, something happened that shocked people who'd been following the case closely. The McCanns themselves were made arguidos. Portuguese police had brought in sniffer dogs specially trained to detect the scent of decomposition and blood, even in traces invisible to the eye. Those dogs reportedly reacted to the family's rental car and parts of the apartment. For a few unbearable months, Kate and Jerry McCann were treated less like grieving parents and more like potential suspects in their own daughter's disappearance. Keep that detail in mind because it becomes important later. The dogs, the reaction, what it did and didn't prove. We'll come back to it. By July 2008, Portuguese prosecutors dropped the case entirely. Not enough evidence to charge anyone. Robert Murat was cleared. The McCanns were cleared. The file was shelved, and for a case this high profile, that should have been the end of it. It wasn't. In 2011, under mounting public pressure and after Jerry McCann personally lobbied the British government, London's Metropolitan Police launched their own investigation from scratch. It was called Operation Grange, and it would go on to become one of the most expensive missing persons investigations in British history, eventually costing more than £13 million. For nearly a decade, Operation Grange chased leads across multiple countries. They re-examined the original Portuguese files. They looked into burglars operating in the area at the time. They investigated whether Madeleine could have been taken as part of a targeted abduction. None of it produced an arrest. None of it produced a name the public would actually remember. Then, in 2020, everything changed. German prosecutors announced they were investigating a German national named Christian Brückner in connection with Madeleine's disappearance, and this time, they weren't treating it as a missing persons case. They were treating it as murder. Here's why Brückner specifically. He had a documented criminal history in Portugal, including convictions related to sexual offenses against children, and he'd been living in the Algarve region on and off between 1995 and 2007, at times just a few kilometers from where Madeleine vanished. Investigators found phone records placing a call from his number to another individual, made from a cell tower near the resort, in the hour after Madeleine is believed to have gone missing. That's the detail prosecutors have leaned on hardest. A phone call, a location, a time frame that lines up almost too perfectly. But here's where most retellings of this case stop, and where it actually gets more complicated. Because having a suspect with a disturbing history and a phone record that places him nearby is not the same as having proof he did it. The lead German prosecutor on this case, Hans Christian Wolters, has said publicly, more than once, that investigators believe they have what he calls concrete evidence pointing to Brückner. But he's also been very specific about a different word, forensic evidence, as in the kind of evidence that actually holds up in a courtroom. And, by his own admission, they don't have that no body has ever been found. No DNA connecting Brückner directly to Madeleine has ever been produced publicly. No confession. Investigators have said they believe she's dead. But belief isn't proof. And Portuguese and German prosecutors both know that gap is exactly what's kept this case in limbo for over 5 years since Brückner was named. So, if the evidence isn't strong enough to charge him with what everyone assumes he did, why has he spent years behind bars anyway? Because of a completely different case. That conviction is what's kept him in a German prison since. Not Madeleine's case. A separate crime, in the same small town, involving a different victim entirely. In 2019, Brückner was convicted of raping a 72-year-old American tourist in Praia da Luz back in 2005, 2 years before Madeleine disappeared, in the same resort town. While serving that sentence, German prosecutors tried again. In October 2022, they charged Brückner with 5 additional counts, including rape and sexual abuse of children, allegedly committed in Portugal between 2000 and 2017. Prosecutors framed this as building a fuller picture of who he is and what he's capable of. His defense framed it differently. They argued he was only being charged because of his connection to the McCann case, and that without that spotlight, these charges might never have been pursued at all. And in October 2024, a court in Braunschweig, Germany, agreed with the defense. Brückner was acquitted on all 5 counts. Sit with that for a second, because this is the detail most coverage buries. The one legal avenue that could have kept Brückner behind bars past his existing sentence just collapsed. Prosecutors had asked for up to 15 years. He walked away with nothing added. German federal prosecutors weren't done, though. In February 2026, they filed a lengthy appeal calling the acquittal deeply flawed, pushing to have it overturned and the case retried. As of now, that appeal is still working its way through Germany's federal court system, and nobody knows how long that could take, or whether it'll succeed at all. Meanwhile, the clock that actually mattered was already running out. Brückner's original prison sentence for the 2005 rape ended in September 2025, and he walked free. No new charges were ready in time to keep him detained. Nothing related to Madeleine. Nothing from the failed appeal, which hadn't even been filed yet. A man that 2 governments have spent years building a case against simply walked out of prison because the paperwork on every other angle wasn't finished. Since his release, Brückner has reportedly been living in tents scattered across wooded areas in northern Germany, relocated more than once after local residents found out who was camping nearby and pushed back, sometimes through public protest. It's a strange image to sit with. One of the most infamous names in modern criminal history, sleeping in the woods, while two countries argue over what to do with him next. Before we get to what's happening right now in 2026, quick pause. If you're the kind of person who wants the real timeline on cases like this, laid out with the actual evidence and not just the headline version, subscribing genuinely helps us keep making these. This channel is small, but every one of you watching this far is exactly who we're making it for. Okay, here's where it gets interesting again. With Germany's legal options stuck in appeal limbo, Britain's Metropolitan Police made a move nobody expected this late in the case. As of May 2026, they've begun the formal process of trying to extradite Christian Brückner to the United Kingdom, specifically so he can be charged there with Madeleine's abduction and, potentially, her murder. Think about how unusual that actually is. Extradition typically happens when a suspect is fleeing justice in one country by hiding in another. Brückner isn't hiding from anyone. He's living openly, under German state monitoring, inside Germany. What British investigators are attempting is something closer to jurisdiction shopping, an admission that if Germany's legal system can't produce a charge tied to Madeleine, maybe Britain's can. Before his 2025 release, the Met Police actually requested to formally interview Brückner directly. One more shot at getting something on record before he became a free man. He refused. That refusal alone tells you something. If he had nothing to hide, why not let investigators cross him off the list once and for all? Then again, any defense lawyer would tell their client the exact same thing. Never talk to police voluntarily, guilty or not. It's the kind of detail that feels significant until you remember it cuts both ways. So, where does that leave things right now? Extradition isn't automatic. The UK would need to present a formal case to German authorities showing they have enough to actually charge Brückner once he's transferred, and Germany has to agree the transfer is legally justified. Given that no formal charges tied to Madeleine currently exist in either country, legal experts following the case say this process could take months, possibly longer, and there's no guarantee it succeeds at all. Meanwhile, on the ground in Portugal, searches near the Arade Reservoir and surrounding areas of the Algarve wrapped up without producing what investigators would call a smoking gun. No remains. No definitive forensic breakthrough. Just more terrain ruled out, in a search area that's already been picked over for nearly 2 decades. Here's the uncomfortable truth sitting underneath all of this. Even if extradition succeeds, even if British prosecutors somehow build a case Germany couldn't, the entire prosecution still likely depends on finding physical proof that's eluded 2 countries' worth of investigators for 19 years. A body, a confession, something forensic strong enough to survive a defense team that's already beaten one set of serious charges in court. And remember that detail from the very beginning. The sniffer dogs. The reaction in the McCann's apartment and rental car back in 2007, for years that detail sat there unresolved, one of dozens of loose threads Portuguese police never fully explained before shelving the case. It's never been definitively tied to anything that followed with Brückner. It's just one more piece of a case that has more open threads than closed ones, even now. So here's where this actually leaves us. 19 years after a child vanished from a bedroom while her parents were 50 meters away, the man 2 governments consider their prime suspect has walked free from every legal system that's tried to hold him, has never been charged with the one crime he's most associated with, and is now the subject of an extradition attempt built on the hope that a third country's courts can do what the first 2 couldn't. Whether that hope turns into an actual courtroom is still completely unknown. What we do know is that for the first time in nearly 2 decades, this case isn't sitting still. Whether that counts as progress, or just another chapter in a very long list of near misses, is something you'll have to decide for yourself. If you want to be here when the next update on this case actually breaks, subscribing is the easiest way to make sure you don't miss it. We'll keep following this one as long as it keeps moving.